What's up, folks? I'm Private Hudson, and this is Shadow Ops: Red Mercury. Shadow Ops is a modern military first-person shooter developed by Zombie Studios and was released back in 2004 on the Xbox and PC. In Shadow Ops, you play as Frank Hayden, an elite Delta Force soldier who is tasked with taking down a Russian terrorist before he detonates a new super powerful nuclear weapon called Red Mercury. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yep, sure does. Shadow Ops was released during a period in time when people got sick and tired of World War II shooters. So, developers decided to change the setting around. The end result was that all your Battlefields, Medal of Honors, and Call of Duties went from being Americans killing Nazis to Americans killing Arabs and Russians. I originally played this on the Xbox many years ago. I got bored of it a couple of levels in. After replaying it on the PC, I can safely say that my opinion hasn't changed one bit. Shadow Ops is a very, very, very boring game. For starters, the story is dreadful and predictable. The first level of the game is one of the last ones, and as you and your squad fight in the Middle East, chasing the Russian. He escapes and detonates the nuke. Then the game gives you a 72 hours earlier title card. Next thing you know, you and your squad mates are doing a random mission that is never explained in Central Africa. After about 40 minutes of shooting black people with guns and blowing up their villages, again, a reason that is never explained, you are briefed about this Russian terrorist stealing a nuke who wants to blow up the world. And off you go through Kazakhstan, Chechnya, Syria, and other lovely vacation spots to save the world. Despite you being the best man for the job and the highest ranking soldier in your squad, for some sort of reason you end up being ordered around by your squad mates. Shadow Ops limits you to 3 weapons and hands them to you at the beginning of each level. You're given a pistol and an assault rifle. The third weapon is usually either a shotgun or a sniper rifle. You can't swap weapons with dead soldiers, so you're stuck with what you get. Not that it matters, since the combat is dull and unsatisfying. And you're going to be using the assault rifle pretty much all the time anyway. None of the guns feel meaty. The game is rated C, so the violence is practically non-existent. To make matters worse, the enemy death animations do not even match with how you killed them. They just fall over in random ways. There isn't any feedback given if the shot you fired hit or not due to lack of blood. It's difficult to tell whether the shot you fired landed, so you just have to keep firing until the enemy's on the ground. That is one of the things I hate so much about companies that decide to make a first-person shooter and limit the violence and language in order to attempt to attract a larger audience. How can you have a military game with people getting shot by tanks and nukes going off and not have any blood or swearing? What? The worst parts of this game are without a doubt the piss-poor level design and overall just how frustratingly cheap the game is. Shadow Ops is as linear of an experience as you can get. It's a corridor shooter. There's only one way to go and nowhere else. All other paths are conveniently blocked off. Every now and then you come across a health pack or an ammo box to the side, but that is it. Every couple of steps you take results in you being ambushed by enemies. Shadow Ops has some of the most frustrating and cheap enemy placement I've ever seen in a first-person shooter. You walk up a flight of stairs, you turn a corner, you reach the end of a hallway, you ride down an elevator, it doesn't matter. You will constantly run into a swarm of enemy soldiers, whose AI is non-existent, but it doesn't matter as they are equipped with aimbots. You will die, and you will die a lot. Shadow Ops is hard, not because it requires skill, but because it is just a cheap and frustrating game. There are moments in the game where you're walking down an alleyway and a grenade just gets dropped on you out of nowhere. There are moments in the game when you're just walking, next thing you know a flashbang explodes and you're surrounded by 5 soldiers. There's moments in the game where once you destroy the objective that you have to destroy, enemies charge through a door that was previously inaccessible, shooting at you with your back turned. The mindset that you need to have while playing Shadow Ops is to expect several enemies hiding in cover, firing at you every time you turn a corner, open a door, ride an elevator, or walk up a flight of stairs. And as if this wasn't frustrating enough, there are no checkpoints or mid-mission saves. If you die, you start the level all the way from the beginning. Just when you thought it couldn't possibly get any fucking worse. And that's Shadow Ops in a nutshell. It's a game whose level design is based around cheap ambushes and frustrating enemy placement, resulting in frequent situations of taking unavoidable damage, even on the normal difficulty setting. It's 5 hours long, and it's 25 levels of the same frustrating crap. I guess the only positive thing I can say about the game is that it's leaning, but even then it's fucked. You can only lean when you use your weapon's iron sights, but when you use your weapon's iron sights, you can't move. This is a console port through and through. Not only is it evident by the lack of manual and quick saving, the lack of sprinting, but also by the game's graphics. Yeah, I know. The game came out in 2004. You know what else came out in 2004? Half-Life 2 and Doom 3. Another thing that baffles me is that the music is disabled by default. I only realized this about halfway through. Lastly, the game's cutscenes are just as compressed and pixelated as the Xbox versions. One way to look at Shadow Ops, I guess, is to view it as a prototype to Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, a game that came out 3 years later and catapulted the modern military shooter into stardom. After all, the plot, the locations, and parts of the gameplay are the same. I like to think of it as a forgettable, generic, boring, and an extremely frustrating game.
I'm starting to think Vladi has 9 lives.
We'll just make sure he doesn't have 10 because we'll all be dead.